Hey there. Tonight we are going to take a walk. Not a pleasant one, not a relaxing one, and definitely not one you would sign up for voluntarily. We are heading into one of the darkest, wettest, most miserable corners of World War II. Welcome to the Hürtgen forest. It is late 1944. The Nazis are losing technically, but no one is celebrating, especially not the American troops, who have just been ordered to clear out a patch of woods in western Germany. Sounds simple. It is not. So before we get into it, make sure you are comfortable. Grab a blanket, maybe make some tea, turn the lights down, and if you're trying to fall asleep, do not worry. This story moves slowly, and it is mostly unpleasant. Perfect for drifting off. Unless you are into personal suffering and tactical failure, in which case, congratulations. You are in the right place. Now, if you are imagining a heroic war movie with swelling music and noble sacrifices, go ahead and put that image in the trash. This is not a story of glory. It is a story of mud, fog, frostbite, and bureaucratic confusion. It is the kind of campaign where soldiers froze to death in their sleep or shelled while going to the bathroom and spent weeks marching in circles through a forest that seemed like it was actively trying to murder them. And in many cases, it was. This is the Battle of Hürtgen Forest. It lasted longer than anyone expected, achieved less than anyone hoped, and broke more men than anyone will ever fully count. The weather was miserable, the terrain was suicidal, and the strategy was at best ambiguous. At worst, it was criminal negligence. But you are not a general. You are not Eisenhower or Bradley or Patton. You are just some guy. You have been drafted, trained, shipped off to Europe. And now here you are standing ankle deep in cold mud, staring at a line of trees that stretch into hell. You are tired, cold, and slightly hungry in a way that never truly fades. Your gear weighs as much as a small horse. Your boots are soaked through, and you have been told to advance into a forest filled with mines, machine guns, and Germans who know the terrain better than you ever will. The good news is that you are technically part of the winning side. The bad news is the forest does not care. The Germans do not care. And your commanding officer is likely just as confused as you are. Welcome to the Hürtgen forest. You will not last a day. You are standing at the edge of a forest that does not appear especially threatening at first glance. A stand of pine trees, some undergrowth, a little mud, nothing dramatic. No towering cliffs, no Gothic castles. Just miles upon miles of identical trees packed so densely together they seem to dare you to step inside. The light barely filters through. Everything around you is brown or gray, or that cold, wet green that signals nothing good is coming. The air smells of rotting leaves, diesel fuel, and old snow. Congratulations. You are about to walk into one of the longest, bloodiest, and most pointless battles of the entire war. It is November 1944. Technically autumn, but the forest has skipped ahead to winter. There is frost clinging to your sleeves and ice gathering inside your boots. You have not felt warmth since Belgium. You are part of the United States First Army, which sounds impressive until you realize your unit has been assigned to the most miserable stretch of terrain on the entire Western Front. Rumors swirl through the ranks. Some claim the operation will be brief, just a few days. Others say it is merely a cleanup effort. Push through the trees, secure a few hills, link up with another division. Straightforward enough. Like hiking, if hiking came with more weapons and far less visibility. You have heard whispers of the Siegfried Line Germany's defensive walls somewhere ahead. Concrete bunkers, coils of barbed wire, tank traps, and who knows what else. But no one knows exactly where it begins, or if the Germans are even still occupying it. All you know for certain is that your orders are to head into this forest and figure it out. The mission is unclear. The objectives shift every day. Many of the officers are working from maps that predate the war. It is a logistical marvel, if the marvel had been designed by a blindfolded child scribbling with crayon. So now you are here, rifle slung over one shoulder, backpack filled with cold rations, wet socks, and a mounting sense of dread. The tree line looms in front of you, dark and ominous. Too still. Someone near the front tries to lighten the mood by joking that it feels like a hunting trip. That person will stop joking by nightfall, maybe sooner. A few men are already coughing. One vomited earlier, blaming the rations. But everyone knows it was nerves. When you step into the forest, the first thing that greets you is not enemy fire. It is the mud. Thick, clinging mud that tries to steal your boots with every step. It pulls at you like it wants to make you stay. Every movement is met with resistance, every step punctuated by that slow, sucking sound. The ground beneath your feet is a patchwork of shattered roots, cratered earth, and the remains of soldiers who came before you. Shells have torn through the canopy, leaving splintered trees and smoking stumps. Some still smolder faintly, and you do not ask why. Visibility vanishes almost immediately. After 10 steps, the road behind you disappears. 20 more, and the sky is gone. The trees are too close together to sway. There is no wind. Everything is silent to silent save for the wet squelch of boots and the far-off thud of artillery. It does not sound nearby, but you have learned not to trust your ears. Shells launched from miles away can land beside you without warning. They do not scream. They do not shout. They just arrive. Someone up ahead stumbles. A root, maybe, or something worse. Everyone freezes. A voice barks a command. You cannot make it out. It does not matter. The column starts moving again, like nothing happened. You check your rifle out of habit, not because you expect to fire it, but because having it in your hands feels slightly reassuring. It is already muddy, despite the repeated orders to keep it clean. That is laughable here. Mud gets into everything. Your gloves are wet. Your socks are wet. You are starting to think even your bones are wet. You pass a tree that looks like it exploded from the inside. It probably did. Shrapnel damage, maybe from a few days ago. The smell still lingers. You try breathing through your mouth, but it does not help. After a few seconds, your throat begins to burn. Someone behind you lights a cigarette. Another man smacks it out of his hand. No words are exchanged. No anger. Just a silent reminder that even a tiny spark can be fatal. After what feels like hours, but is probably only 30 minutes, the group halts. No explanation. You are told to dig in. The soil is half frozen and knotted with roots, but you drop your pack and start scooping mud with a shovel that looks like it belongs in a museum. You aim for a foxhole. What you end up with is more like a shallow puddle. You sit in it anyway. This will be home for the next few hours, perhaps longer. You ask someone nearby if this is the front line. They shrug. No one really knows. The forest does not have front lines. It just has trees, some of which shoot back. A lieutenant walks past and mutters something about mines. You nod, though it is not exactly helpful. You have not seen any mines, but then again, you would not until you step on one. You shift your weight. The earth beneath you makes a soggy sound. There is no visible enemy. That is the part that truly wears on you. You might expect that seeing the Germans would be terrifying, and it is, but not seeing them? That is worse. The forest conceals everything. Shapes, movements, sounds. They are out there. Sometimes you hear something, a faint crack, a whisper of motion. Could be the wind, could be footsteps, could be nothing. You will not know until it is too late. Rain begins to fall, soft at first, cold and steady. It drips from your helmet and creeps down your collar. You draw your coat tighter, though it barely helps. The man beside you mutters something. You cannot tell if it is a prayer or a curse or both. Someone across the shallow trench sneezes. No one says anything. Blessings feel foreign here. A messenger appears like a ghost, hands a folded note to the lieutenant, and vanishes just as quickly. There is no announcement. Whatever it said, no one tells you. You assume that means nothing has changed. You hope it means nothing has changed. The rain grows heavier. Your foxhole is now simply a puddle. Your legs are cramping, but you do not move. Standing up feels dangerous. Sitting feels pointless. So you crouch, rifle across your lap, water pooling around your knees. You try not to think too hard about the word advance. Night falls in stages. First the light fades, then the temperature drops, then the sounds begin to shift. There is less talking, less movement. The forest begins to make different noises, creaking, hissing, whispering, if you believe in that sort of thing. You do not really. But you are beginning to understand why some men say this place is cursed. It does not feel like a battlefield. It feels like it is waiting for something. And you are the something. There are no campfires, no songs, no laughter, just the occasional clink of metal and the low, muffled sound of someone trying not to cough. You eat from a tin without tasting it. Cold beans, perhaps. It is hard to tell. The label peeled off days ago. Someone produces a chocolate bar and splits it 5 ways. It is the best thing you have tasted all week, and it is mostly wax. You try to sleep. That fails. The ground is too wet. Your gear presses too heavily on your back. Your nerves are too loud. You hear artillery again closer this time. It is not incoming, just rumbling in the distance. Someone else is getting hit. You should feel bad. Mostly, you feel relieved that it is not you. Then you feel guilty about that relief. Then the cold sets in again, and the guilt is numbed along with everything else. Morning arrives without ceremony. There is just a gradual shift in shade gray, mostly. The trees look exactly the same. The mud looks worse. You stretch. A mistake. Something in your back protests with a pop. The man beside you is snoring softly. You consider waking him. You do not. He probably needs the sleep. You probably do too. But it is too late. A voice calls out from down the line, something about moving out. No one cheers, no one sighs. You just rise, lift your pack, and prepare to do it all over again. The trees are waiting. So is the enemy. So is another day of cold confusion, and that sinking feeling that you are walking straight into the part of the map labeled "Do Not Go," and you have not even seen combat yet. You do not so much wake up as return to awareness. Sleep is not something that happens here in any real or restful sense. You just fade out for a few moments at a time and hope nothing explodes while your mind is elsewhere. It is still dark. Could be 3 o'clock. Could be 5. You have no watch. The ones you were issued have long since stopped working in this weather. You tilt your head upward and try to guess the hour by the particular shade of gray above. It tells you nothing. Something sharp has jabbed into your side. A rock, a root, or maybe just your own ribs. It is impossible to tell. You are soaked again, or perhaps you never truly dried. Your jacket is sodden. Your boots feel like buckets. Your fingers ache like brittle twigs and resist any attempt to bend them. When you finally sit up, your spine protests with every inch. Nothing about this position is natural. You have been curled up in what is generously described as a foxhole. Realistically, it is a muddy depression in the ground that smells of damp canvas, old sweat, and the stale remnants of yesterday's fear. The first sound you hear is a cough not your own. It comes from nearby, a deep, rattling, stubborn cough that echoes with resignation. It is the kind of cough that tells you the man's lungs are waving a white flag. Maybe Trenchfoot has decided to explore the upper body. You glance over. The man does not move. You think about checking on him. Then you think better of it. There is no time to play nurse here. A boot nudges your leg. You flinch instinctively, then realize it is just a squad mate. No words, just the boot. That is how you know it is time. You haul yourself out of the hole slowly. Your knees click. Your back protests again. You are 30 years old, but right now you feel closer to 80. The mud clings to your boots like a jealous lover. You lift one foot with a slurp, then the other. One of them's leaking. You do not know how. Only that your sock is wet again, which is impressive because you are fairly sure it had dried briefly sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning. Someone mutters, "Rise and shine." No one laughs. No one even smiles. You trudge toward what passes for a gathering point. It is not a camp, not a base, just a soggy clearing where people gather to get shouted at before marching back into the trees. There is a stack of crates nearby. Most of them are empty. A few still hold rations, though you doubt they are full. You cannot remember the last time you saw a crate that was not already spoken for by another platoon. You reach for something that resembles breakfast. It is a tin, probably beans, but it could be anything. The label is long gone. Your sense of smell gave up days ago. You jab a knife into the lid, peel it back, and stare at the contents as they jiggle ominously. That is not a promising texture. You scoop some out with your fingers. Your spoon was lost last week, and no one is handing out replacements. You chew. It tastes like metal and disappointment. You hear a distant thud. Not close, not far, either. Mortar or artillery, perhaps? No one flinches. That is the new normal. You only duck if it lands close. Anything else is part of the background now. Another sound joins it, a low, steady wind that has found a gap in your coat and is exploring your spine. You shiver. Again. Around you, everyone looks the same. Same uniform, different shades of filth. Helmets sit crooked. Faces are smeared with mud and smoke. Eyes are rimmed red from exhaustion and cold. Someone has wrapped a scarf around their face, like a makeshift gas mask. Not for gas, but to keep out the stench, or perhaps to trap it in. Either way, it makes no difference. The sergeant appears. He is chewing something. It might be gum. It might be tobacco. It might be leather. He barks something about heading east. You do not know which direction that is. Your compass broke 2 weeks ago. You nod, then wait for someone else to move first. That is the safest bet. Follow the pack. One man is trying to dry his socks over a tiny flame. Fires are not allowed. They draw attention. He gets scolded. He does not argue. Just sighs, douses the fire, and slips the wet socks back on. That is what passes for morale out here. 15 seconds of warmth before reality returns. The unit begins to assemble into something that vaguely resembles a formation. It is not precise. It is not military. It is just people moving in roughly the same direction. Rifles slung over shoulders. Heads bowed. The trees await. They always do. You cannot see into them until you are already inside. And by then, it is too late to back out. Someone asks if it is Monday. No one replies. Days have no meaning here. Time is measured by footsteps and chill. You sling your rifle again. It is already coated in grime. You wipe it off with your sleeve. Now your sleeve is dirty too. It never ends. You check the safety. Then you check it again. You have seen what happens when someone forgets. It is loud. It is fast. There is rarely a third chance. Marching into the forest feels different every time. Sometimes it is a thin path between trunks. Sometimes it is pushing through undergrowth, hoping you do not trip over a root or something worse. The ground beneath you is soft, but not kindly. It swallows noise and offers nothing back. Each footfall is absorbed into the hush. There is something unsettling about that silence. It is not calm. It is unnatural. Your ears stay alert, always waiting for that wrong sound. The click, the snap, The sharp whine that means something has just been fired and is already on its way. Your legs are cramping, but you do not move. Standing up feels dangerous. Sitting feels pointless. So you crouch, rifle across your lap, water pooling around your knees, and try not to think too hard about the word advance. Night falls in stages. First the light fades, then the temperature drops, then the sounds shift. Less talking, less movement. The forest starts making different noises. Creaking, hissing, whispering. If you believe in that sort of thing, you do not? Not really. But you are starting to understand why some guys say this place is cursed. It does not feel like a battlefield. It feels like it is waiting for something. And you are the something. No campfires, no songs, no banter. Just the occasional clink of metal and the low sound of someone trying not to cough. You eat from a tin without tasting it. Cold beans, maybe. Hard to tell. The label peeled off days ago. Someone pulls out a chocolate bar and splits it 5 ways. It is the best thing you have tasted all week, and it is mostly wax. You try to sleep. That does not work. The ground is too wet. Your gear is too heavy. Your nerves are too loud. You hear artillery again. Closer this time, not incoming. Just thudding in the distance. Someone else is getting hit. You should feel bad. You mostly feel relieved it is not you. Then you feel bad about that. Then the cold sets in again, and you stop feeling anything. Morning arrives without fanfare. Just a gradual shift in color. Gray mostly. The trees look the same. The mud looks worse. You stretch. Bad idea. Something pops in your back. The guy next to you is snoring quietly. You think about waking him up. You do not. He probably needs the rest. You also probably need the rest. Too late. A voice calls out from down the line. Something about moving out. No one cheers. No one even sighs. You just stand, lift your pack, and prepare to do it all over again. The trees are waiting. So is the enemy. So is another day of cold confusion. And that feeling you are marching straight into the part of the map labeled do not. And you have not even seen combat yet. You do not so much wake up as you return to awareness. Sleep is not really a thing here. Not in any real sense. You just kind of black out for a few minutes at a time and hope nothing explodes while you are unconscious. It is still dark. Could be 3 in the morning. Could be 5. No one has issued you a watch that works in this weather. You squint up at the sky and try to guess the time based on the shade of gray it has turned. It does not help. Something is jabbed into your side. A rock, a root, your own rib. Hard to say. You are soaked again or still. Your jacket is heavy. Your boots are heavier, and your fingers feel like frozen pencils. You try to flex them. They resist. You finally sit up, and your spine files the complaint. Nothing about this position is natural. You have been curled up in what is generously called a foxhole. Realistically, it is a waterlogged depression in the earth that smells like damp canvas, old sweat, and yesterday's fear. The first thing you hear is coughing, not yours. Someone nearby. Deep, wet, repetitive. The kind of cough that tells you this guy's lungs are giving up. Maybe Trenchfoot got bored and decided to move north. You look over. The guy does not move. You think about checking on him. Then you think about minding your own business. You go with the second one. There is no time to play nurse. Not here. A boot nudges your leg. You flinch. It is just one of your squad mates. No words, just the boot. That is how you know it is time. You climb out of your hole slowly. Your knees crack. Your neck protests. You are 30 years old. Maybe you feel 80. The mud tries to reclaim your boots. You pull one out with a disgusting slurp, and then the other. One of them leaks. You do not know how. You just know your sock is wet again, which is impressive because you are pretty sure it had dried out sometime around 2 in the morning. Someone mumbles, "Rise and shine." No one laughs. No one even acknowledges it. You shuffle toward what counts as the gathering point. Not a camp, not really a base, just a small clearing where people congregate to get yelled at before marching back into the woods. There is a stack of crates nearby. Most of them are empty. A few contain rations, maybe. You do not remember the last time you saw a full crate that was not already promised to another platoon. You grab something that resembles breakfast. It is a tin, probably beans, but it could be anything. The label is missing, and your sense of smell has stopped working. You jab a knife into the lid, peel it back, and stare at the contents. It jiggles. That is not a good sign. You scoop some out with your fingers because you lost your spoon last week, and no one is replacing it. You chew. It tastes like metal and shame. You hear a distant thud. Not close, not far either. Mortar, maybe. Or artillery. No one reacts. That is the new baseline. Now you only duck when it is really close. Anything further out is background noise. Another sound joins it, low and constant. That is the wind. It has found a way through your jacket and down your spine. You shiver again and again. You look around at the others. Everyone looks the same. Same uniforms, different layers of filth. Helmets tilted back, faces streaked with mud and smoke, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep and wind exposure. Someone has wrapped their scarf around their face like a makeshift gas mask. Not for gas, just to keep the stench out or in. Could be either. Your sergeant appears. He is chewing something. Might be gum, might be tobacco, might be a piece of leather. He barks something about moving east. You are not sure which direction that is. Compass broke 2 weeks ago. You just nod and wait for someone else to start walking. That is the safest bet. You move when they do. One guy is trying to dry his socks over a tiny fire. That is not allowed. Fires draw attention. He gets yelled at. He does not argue. Just sighs, dumps water on the fire, and puts his wet socks back on. That is what passes for morale here, trying to warm your feet for 15 seconds before being reminded the enemy has mortar. The unit starts to shuffle into a loose formation. No one is really lined up. It is more like a trail of people vaguely moving in the same direction, with rifles slung over shoulders and heads down. The trees are waiting. They always are. You cannot see into them until you are inside. And by then, it is too late to turn around. Someone asks if it is Monday. No one answers. Days do not matter. Time is just cold, measured in footsteps. You sling your rifle back over your shoulder. It is already caked in dirt again. You wipe it with your sleeve. Now your sleeve is also dirty. It is a never-ending cycle. You check the safety. Then you check again. You have seen what happens when someone forgets. It is loud. It is fast. And there is usually no third check. Marching into the woods is different every time. Sometimes it is a narrow path between trees. Sometimes it is just crashing through underbrush and hoping you do not trip over a root or a corpse. The soil under your boot is soft, but not in a friendly way. It absorbs noise and gives nothing back. You step, and it just eats the sound. There is something wrong with how quiet this place gets. It is not peaceful. It is suspicious. Your ears are always tuned to that one unnatural sound. The click, the snap, the high-pitched whine. That means something just left the barrel and is heading your way. You have learned to react faster than you think. You have also learned that sometimes it does not matter. The guy behind you is humming, just a low tune. Something from back home, probably. You do not ask. You just let it fill the space for a minute. Then he stops. Maybe he forgot the rest. Maybe he remembered where he is. You keep walking. The fog is thicker now. It settles between the trees like it has been waiting. You can see 10 feet ahead, maybe 15. Shapes move. Some of them are people. Some are trees. Sometimes you are not sure. You keep your head low and your eyes forward. The first shell lands a few 100 yards away. You feel it before you hear it. A low vibration through your boots, then the sound, then the echo. No one yells. You all just freeze for a second, then keep moving. That is how it goes now. There is no formation anymore, just movement. You are surrounded by bark, roots, and the faint feeling that something is about to go very wrong. It always feels like that. And sometimes it does. A runner stumbles up, says something about a new position, better visibility, better cover. You do not believe it, but you nod. He runs off again. That is his job. Running through hell with half the information and none of the authority. You are told to dig in again. You look at the ground. It is the same as yesterday. Frozen mud, tangled roots, hidden rocks. You pull out your shovel and start digging. It is mechanical now. Muscle memory. Dig. Scoop. Curse. Repeat. You glance up. Trees are thinner here. That is bad. It means less protection from shell bursts. Less cover from machine gun fire. Less of everything except sky. And you do not want to see the sky. The sky is where death comes from. You keep your eyes low. Someone is muttering nearby. A prayer maybe, or a grocery list from a life that feels 3 years ago. You keep digging. Another shell lands closer. This time you feel the ground shift under you. Dirt rains down from above. A branch snaps and falls beside you. You do not flinch. That reaction got burned out last week. You finally get your hole deep enough to crouch in. You slide into it like it is a second skin. Someone tosses you a piece of bread. Stale, hard, and a little bit moldy. You eat it anyway. It gives your jaw something to do. A few words pass between the men. Not full sentences, just noises. You all understand. Words are inefficient here. You glance at your watch. Still broken. Still 12. You wonder if it will ever move again. Maybe it is smarter than you. Maybe it knows to stop counting time in a place like this. The fog gets thicker. A shadow moves at the edge of your vision. You do not look. You just tighten your grip on your rifle and wait. The trees will tell you what it was, or they will not. Either way, you will find out soon enough. You shift in your hole and try to find a comfortable position. There is not one. You lean back against the mud and close your eyes for a second. Just a second. It is going to be a long day. You are not sure how long you had your eyes closed. Might have been a minute. Might have been 20. Long enough for your back to start aching again, and your left foot to go numb. You stretch, and something pops in your shoulder. It is not a satisfying pop. It is the kind that makes you quietly wonder if you are falling apart one joint at a time. You do not have time to check. Orders are already being barked. Not shouted, not explained, just barked. Everyone starts moving again. That is how you know it is time to get up. You climb out of your hole with all the grace of a man exiting a coffin. The air hits you immediately. It is colder than before. The kind of cold that does not just wrap around you. It gets inside. You feel it behind your eyes, under your fingernails, down your spine. It bites in places you did not know could be bitten. Your jacket is stiff, not from ice, but from layers of dirt, sweat, and whatever industrial-grade adhesive is created when wool and human misery ferment together. Time to gear up. Not for battle, not for glory, just to survive standing still. You start with the jacket. It is heavy. Not because it is designed to be. It just is. Every inch of it holds water from last night's fog, rain from 2 days ago, and the cumulative bad decisions of whoever decided canvas was a good idea in freezing temperatures. The buttons are stubborn. Your fingers are stiff. You use your teeth to help. Probably not the most hygienic method, but that ship sailed when you stopped brushing your teeth 5 weeks ago. Next come the boots, or more accurately, the leather foot prisons that used to be boots. They are caked in mud so thick they have become part of the terrain. You kick them against a rock to loosen the worst of it. The mud wins. You give up and yank them on anyway. Your socks are still damp from yesterday, but you put them on again because that is the only pair you have that are not frozen solid. You tug at the laces. They creak. That is not a good sign. You double knot them and pretend they are secure. Gloves, or what is left of them. One has a hole in the palm. The other is missing a finger. Not your finger, just the gloves. You slide them on and flex your hands. It feels like trying to bend cardboard. Your fingertips still sting. That is either a good sign or the last one before they stop stinging entirely. Now, the belt. Always with the belt. It is a collection of pouches, clips, and straps designed by someone who hated human anatomy. You hook the canteen. It sloshes like a dying fish. It is half full of lukewarm water and a layer of film that probably was not there yesterday. You screw the cap back on and move on. Next is your ammo pouch. It feels light. You do not say anything. You just make a note to count later. Then forget to count later. The pack. You lift it. Regret it. Set it down. Consider leaving it. Then remember it holds your blanket, your spare socks, your extra ration tin, your map, your entrenching tool, your hygiene kit you have not touched in a month, and a handful of items you do not even remember packing. You heave it onto your back and immediately feel your spine express disappointment. Your helmet has collected leaves again. You shake them out and jam it on your head. It smells like old steel oil and the distinct scent of scalp neglect. The chin strap sticks. You do not bother unclipping it. You just wedge your jaw in and let it hang there. You look around. Everyone else looks just as miserable. That is comforting in a way. Shared suffering is the only team-building exercise that really stuck. Someone asks if there is hot coffee. It is not a joke. He is serious. The look he gets in return is not unkind. It is just blank. Like the idea of hot anything does not compute anymore. The closest thing you have had to hot food in the past 3 days was a can of corned beef that got warmed up by accident when a nearby shell went off. You all ate it anyway. You did not even chew. The wind shifts. It finds its way down your collar and between your shoulder blades. You clench your jaw and hunch forward. It does not help. Nothing helps. One guy tries wrapping his scarf around his face. Another layers his 2 shirts in reverse order. Like that will trick the cold into giving up. You all pretend these things work. You have to. Your sergeant walks past, glancing at everyone's gear. He has that look. The one that says he has already argued with someone about supplies and lost. The guy across from you pulls out a single sugar cube. Just one. He breaks it in half and sucks on it like it is a cigarette. You look away. That kind of joy feels too personal to watch. The wind picks up again. Your teeth chatter. Not from hunger, just from being alive in a place that seems annoyed by your presence. You clutch your rifle a little tighter and try not to think about how long it will be before you are told to move again. You are not full. You are not satisfied. You are just no longer actively chewing, which counts as progress. You spit out a flake of something that might have been tin or dirt or bone. You do not look too closely. Someone burps. Someone else curses at their can opener. A few men are still digging at ration packs with their bare hands, tearing open cans like raccoons with something feral in their eyes. You check your pockets. 1 crushed biscuit. A few loose crumbs in a wax wrapper. That is your emergency supply now. You fold the wrapper carefully and slide it back into your coat. Another thud echoes in the distance. No one reacts. Then another, closer. That one gets a glance, but not much more. You lean back against the nearest tree and pull your scarf up again. The taste of metal still lingers in your mouth. It mixes with the smell of pine, diesel, and old sweat. You try not to breathe too deeply. No one talks much anymore. Breakfast was supposed to be a reprieve, a routine, something resembling a human moment. Instead, it is a reminder. You are cold, you are hungry, and you are nowhere near done. Your stomach growls again. You pretend you did not hear it. So does everyone else. You are back on your feet before your legs agree to it. The signal comes down the line. Quiet, not dramatic. No bugles, no shouted commands. Just a wave of motion from the front that says it is time to move. You tighten your pack, adjust your rifle sling, and step back into the forest like you are walking into a giant mouth that has not finished chewing its last meal. The trees swallow you up fast. That is how the forest works. 1 minute you are near open ground. The next you are 50 feet in and surrounded by trunks and fog. The light fades again. It always does in here. It does not matter what time it is. The canopy is thick and the air is damp. Visibility drops to about 10 feet in any direction. Beyond that, everything becomes a suggestion of a shape you would rather not investigate. You follow the man in front of you, watching the back of his helmet and the way his boots disappear into the mud. It is not a path, not really. Just a line of flattened ground winding through the trees and around stumps. You do not ask where you are going. You do not think anyone knows. The map says advance. So that is what you are doing. Forward, always forward. The air smells like wet bark and rust. Every breath feels like it is passing through damp wood and mold. You keep your mouth closed. It helps with the cold, though not the taste. You step over a root that looks like it might grab your ankle. Someone behind you does not see it in time and stumbles with a muffled curse. He is up quickly. Nobody stops to help anymore. If you are moving, you are fine. If you are not, someone will check eventually. Somewhere ahead, a twig snaps. Everyone freezes. Rifles rise. Fingers hover on triggers. You wait. Nothing happens. It could be an animal. It could be the wind. It could be one of your own. It could be a sniper, watching through a scope, wondering if you are worth the bullet. You keep moving. The deeper you go, the more the forest feels like it is pressing inward. The trees crowd close. Branches reach for your gear, scrape your helmet, swipe your cheek if you are not careful. The ground tilts without warning. Little ridges, sudden dips, all masked by leaves slick with damp. Beneath them, roots and rocks wait to twist your step. You pass a tree with a blackened hole in it, the size of a basketball. Shell damage. Burned bark, the wood inside splintered and rotting. You do not stop. You have seen what those wounds mean. Someone ahead raises a fist. Everyone halts. You crouch without thinking. The cold mud greets you again. No gunfire. Just stillness. Then a whisper reaches back. Wire ahead. Traps. Low strings strung between trunks, almost invisible unless you are searching. A man goes forward with a stick, gently brushing the ground. It is slow, painfully slow, but nobody speaks. Speed is where mistakes are born. The group huddles behind, waiting. You adjust your helmet. It still never sits right. Sweat beads beneath your jacket despite the chill. Moisture builds with every step. Your back is wet. Your toes are numb. Your hands alternate between frozen and soaked. Something moves in the brush. A glint. Maybe your imagination? You do not look long. Looking too long means losing balance or gear or your nerve. The path clears. You continue. There is talk of a ridge ahead. Not far, they say. Just beyond the next draw. But the terrain always lies. Every not far becomes another climb. Another muddy descent. Every just passed becomes another delay. You stop trusting in ridges. Even when you stand on one, you hesitate to believe it. Gunfire barks in the distance. Sharp, distinct, familiar rifles, then silence. A skirmish, maybe, or a patrol that found something it should not have. You do not change course. You simply crouch a little lower. You are careful not to make noise. Another root grabs at your boot. You nearly fall. You catch yourself, slap the worst of the muck from your knees. But it clings stubbornly. Everything you wear is now brown, green, or gray. Someone hisses behind. You freeze. Mines were reported here. There are no signs, no flags, just snow, leaves, and the possibility of vanishing without a sound. You wait. A young officer approaches. His uniform is too clean, his voice too bright. He points at a map, then the trees, talks about coverage and ground. Everyone nods. He disappears again. A runner trails after, quiet as shadow. You begin edging left, around the threat. Slowly, each footstep is deliberate. The forest does not reassure. Every sound underfoot could mean disaster. You make it through. This time, the light continues to dim. Maybe the sun is gone. Maybe it never rose. The fog returns, thicker. You can barely see the silhouette ahead of you. You keep moving. You slip into a hole. Your boot sinks deep. You pull it free with effort. The sound it makes is wet and unpleasant. You pass a tree with markings scratched into it. Old. Could be a unit tag, could be a sign. You do not stop to read. The air gets colder still. You breathe through your scarf, even though it is damp. Your lips crack when you lick them. The sting reminds you that you are still here. Another shape appears. Large, still. You raise your rifle. It is only a tree, with a coat hanging from a branch. Left behind, or abandoned. You lower the rifle. Coughing breaks the silence. Behind you, persistent and deep. The kind of cough that stays in the lungs. It echoes through the trees like something foreign. You all stop again, listening, not breathing. You duck behind a stump, not for cover, just out of habit. Your knees creak. Your back screams. You check your rifle's chamber. Still clean. Good enough. A few men shift positions. You do the same. Another few feet forward. Another few hours lost to the forest. You have stopped counting steps. You do not bother asking how far anymore. Someone up front mutters about bunkers. Says they are close. Concrete and steel buried in the hillside. German ones. You nod like it matters. You have not seen a bunker. You have not seen much of anything. Just trees. Always the trees. You blink. Your eyes sting. You have not cried. It is just the wind or the cold or whatever else lives in the air around here. You lower your head. Keep walking. The man in front of you does the same into the trees. That is where everything goes. The first raindrop does not register. You are already soaked. At first, it just feels like the sweat you never stopped producing. Then it keeps coming. A light drizzle, then a little harder, then steady. The kind that sneaks into your collar and trickles down your back. Not enough to soak your gear all at once. Just enough to make sure it never gets dry again. No one says anything. There is nothing to say. You shift your pack higher and pull your scarf tighter. Your jacket, if it ever had water resistance, gave that up weeks ago. You feel the fabric sucking in moisture like a sponge that hates you. It clings to your arms, bunches at your elbows, rubs your skin raw in spots you cannot scratch because your gloves are too thick and too wet. The trees do not provide shelter, not real shelter. The branches catch some of the rain and hold it just long enough to build up into little puddles of leaf-filtered water, which they then drop directly down your collar at the worst possible moment. You learn not to stand still under anything for too long. You also learn that moving does not help either. The mud thickens with every step. You have been walking on it so long, you do not even notice the extra effort anymore. You just lift your boots with more resistance and accept the fact that the forest floor wants to eat you. Each step is a negotiation. You plant your foot, hope it holds, shift your weight, and repeat the process until you forget what dry land feels like. You hear someone behind you muttering about snow. At first, it sounds like wishful thinking. Then you notice the temperature's dropped again. A sharpness in the wind, the kind that slices, not blows. You breathe through your nose and feel the sting all the way to your chest. You keep moving. Then it happens. A few flakes at first, floating between the trees like ash. Light, slow, lazy, then more. It does not fall straight down. It drifts sideways, pushed by gusts that sneak under your helmet and slam into your ears. You hunch instinctively. Everyone does. Snow does not have the courtesy to be scenic out here. It turns visibility from bad to worse. Now you cannot even see the guy 5 feet ahead of you without squinting. Your gloves are useless. They are wet on the outside and damp on the inside. And now the cold is creeping into your fingertips. You clench your fists, shake your hands, do anything to keep feeling in them. You remember stories from training how frostbite sets in fast and quietly. You check your fingers every few minutes without letting anyone see. They are still red. You tell yourself that is good. You do not know if it is. The wind changes direction again. It never comes from one side. It swirls, rushes, spins through the trees in sudden bursts. It blows the snow into your eyes, your mouth, under your scarf. You blink against it until your eyelids ache. You spit onto the ground and watch the saliva freeze into the mud almost immediately. There is a distant whistle. Artillery, you know the sound now. You do not even flinch. It lands far away, a dull thump muffled by the snow. Nobody reacts. You are all too busy keeping your footing on ground that is slowly turning to slush. You pass a tree that looks like it exploded from the inside. The bark is shredded, blackened. A shell hit here not long ago. You keep walking. There are more like it everywhere. You reach a small clearing. Someone says you are stopping. The relief is temporary. You drop your pack and crouch behind a stump that is already soaked through. You do not sit. You learn not to sit unless you are ready to wring out your pants afterward. You pull your blanket out. It is stiff and heavy, like a rug soaked in motor oil. You wrap it around your legs. It helps a little. Not enough to matter, but just enough to pretend. Someone next to you sneezes violently, then again, then starts coughing. It does not stop. You glance over. He waves you off. You do not press. Everyone is coughing now. You have stopped worrying about infection. If you were not already sick, you will be soon. If you are, you keep it to yourself. You try to light a cigarette. The match snaps. You try another. Wind takes the flame. You cup your hands. Shield it like it is gold. Finally get it going. The first drag burns. The second is smooth. You savor it like a meal. Someone asks for a puff. You pass it. They take two. You do not argue. Snow keeps falling. Not heavy, just steady. A quiet reminder that the forest has layers of misery. Rain, then snow, then sleet, then rain again. The cycle rotates based on which part of your body is least protected. You adjust your collar again. It is already soaked. You look at your rifle. The metal is wet. You wipe it off. Then wipe the rag on your pants. Then realize all you are doing is moving water from one place to another. The mechanism still works for now. Someone farther back yells something. Not urgent, just frustrated. The weather makes people short-tempered. There is nothing to do about it. The cold turns complaints into background noise. You stop noticing them after the first week. The sergeant walks past, says something about movement in an hour. You nod. You do not know if you heard him right, and you do not ask for clarification. You just get ready to stand up again. Your legs are numb. That is normal now. A guy next to you pulls out a can of food, tries to open it with a frozen knife. It slips, cuts his hand. He does not flinch, just wraps it with a rag and eats anyway. You look away. You glance up at the sky. Gray, no breaks, no sun, just one big sheet of apathy above your head. You stopped checking the time days ago. The forest does not care about clocks. You start to shiver. You try to stop. Shaking makes noise, but your body has other ideas. The cold has dug in under your skin, and it is not letting go. Someone says it is getting colder tonight, that the real winter has not even hit yet. You do not answer. You just pull your scarf up higher, feel the wet fabric against your mouth, and take another slow breath. The trees creak as the wind pushes through. One groans loud enough to make everyone glance up. Just a tree settling, probably. You start adjusting your gear again, not because it helps, but because it gives your hands something to do. You shift your pack, retie a strap, check your boots, flex your fingers. You are not fixing anything. You are just pretending you have control over something. Your breath fogs in front of you, thick now. It lingers longer than it should. The air is not moving anymore. The forest has gone still again. You wait. You check your rifle again, and look forward into the trees. Same as always, just shapes in the gray, still there, still watching. It happens before you know it. 1 second you are hunched under your blanket, pretending it keeps you warm, and the next there is a sound overhead that does not belong. A sharp ripping whistle that carves through the still air like a razor. You do not even think. You just drop. You have been trained to recognize the noise. You do not need anyone to yell incoming. You feel it in your teeth before it finishes screaming. The shell hits somewhere up the hill. You do not see the impact. You feel the ground jolt under your chest. Dirt sprays down from the trees. A chunk of bark lands on your helmet. Then there is another closer. This one you see just a flash of light and a sound like the world folding in on itself. No one is talking now. Everyone is just on their belly, pressing into the cold, wet earth like it might open up and swallow them out of range. You do not pray. You do not panic. You just wait. That is the only defense you have left. Another shell whistles overhead, and you brace for it. It lands somewhere behind you. You hear the trees crack like bones. A branch snaps and crashes down to the left. Then silence. Not real silence. Just a pause between impacts. Tree bursts. That is what they are called. The shells do not always hit the ground. Sometimes they explode in the air. And when they do, the shrapnel sprays down like a steel rainstorm. The trees become part of the weapon. Splinters the size of kitchen knives shoot out in every direction. That is what gets you out here. Not the blast itself, but what comes after. What is in the air. You have seen what it does. Limbs severed by wood. Faces shredded. Helmets that look like they got chewed by a machine. You have seen guys go down without a sound. Just slump into the dirt like a switch got flipped. And it is never clear what hit them. Could have been metal. Could have been tree. Could have been luck running out. You lift your head an inch. Just enough to scan the treetops. You do not see movement. You barely see light. The fog is back thick and low. You hear another shell leave its barrel. Miles away, maybe, but your brain has already calculated the trajectory before your ears finish processing it. You drop again. This one hits closer. You feel the shock wave pass through your stomach like a punch. Someone yells. Not a word, just a noise. You look over, cannot tell who it came from. Too many helmets, too many shapes pressed flat into the forest floor. The dirt shifts under you again. Another impact. Same pattern. They are walking the rounds forwards. Whoever is calling the shots knows where you are, or at least close enough to guess. It is not accurate. It does not need to be. They are just saturating the area. pressure, not precision. You roll onto your side and press your face against your arm. It stinks, wet wool and old grease, but it is better than the open air. You cough once, quiet. The air is not just cold anymore. It is toxic. Smells like charred wood, cordite, and wet iron. Your throat tightens. Your eyes burn. The blast pressure pulls the oxygen out of the air around it. You are not breathing right. None of you are. Another shell hits somewhere deeper in the forest. You hear the trees falling before the sound catches up. It is a slow crash, then a thump, then stillness, like a giant sat down. You feel the tremor in your elbows. Someone is groaning nearby. Not loud, just low and constant. It blends with the wind. You glance over. There is movement in a hole a few feet away. A hand reaching for a helmet that is no longer on a head. A man is still breathing. You know, because steam rises every time he exhales. You think about moving, helping. But you are not a medic, and your legs do not feel like moving. You stay where you are. Half out of fear. Half because you have learned that one wrong step is all it takes to make your own blood part of the fog. You check your body just to be sure. Hands still working, feet still there, no sharp pain. You do not remember hearing anything near you, but the blast radius of a tree burst is a guessing game. You pat your chest, jacket's torn, no blood, just dirt. You are lucky this time. A voice hisses low, orders to move. Crawl, not stand. You dig your elbows into the muck and slide forward like a slug in uniform. The cold does not matter now. The air is filled with dust and debris and smoke. But you keep going. Your knees scrape roots. You bite your tongue. You keep moving. The new position is a ditch. Not a trench, not dug properly. Just a natural depression someone found. There is room for free men, for if nobody wants to breathe. You squeeze in next to someone you have not spoken to since last week. He nods. You nod back. No words, just shared exhaustion. You check your rifle. Still functional. Barrel's muddy. You wipe it. Will not matter if the next round lands here, but it gives your hand something to do. Above you, the trees sway. Not gently. They rock like they are trying to fall over. You do not know if it is wind or the aftershocks from the barrage. The distinction does not matter. If one falls, it falls. You have seen what that does too. A guy crushed under a trunk. Clean kill, fast, almost merciful. The shelling slows. Gaps between the whistles. Maybe they are shifting fire. Maybe they are reloading. Maybe they are just playing with you. You do not know. You stay in the ditch and wait for someone with stripes to tell you it is safe to move. It will not be, but it is the closest you will get. Someone finally speaks. Says they are pulling back a few yards. Better cover. You nod. Start crawling again. Every movement feels like it costs more than it should. Your joints hurt. Your fingers are stiff. Your lungs do not like the air anymore. You pass a tree stump with a black stain on the side. You do not look at it too long. You reach the next cover point. A few logs piled at an angle. Makeshift shelter. You slide behind it. Sit. Try to exhale. Try again. The forest is quieter now. Not silent. Just waiting. You can hear distant birds again. Or maybe it is just your ears ringing. The guy next to you mutters that the air hurts. You agree, even if you do not say it. Breathing feels like swallowing glass dust. Every inhale scratches. Every exhale sticks in your throat. You sip from your canteen. The water tastes like metal. You do not care. You drink anyway. Then pull your scarf up again. Not for warmth, just to filter the air a little. No one tells you when it is over. It is not. The shells will come back. The forest does not forget. Neither does the artillery. You wipe your face, soot on your fingers. Not blood. Not this time. The air settles for now, but it is still wrong, still heavy. You close your eyes for a second, just a second. You open them again. The trees are still there. The sky is still gray. The air still hurts. You do not notice it at first. You are too focused on your lungs and whatever just exploded 2 ridge lines over. But then you shift your weight and your foot does not come with it. That is how it starts. A numbness. Like your boots have turned into concrete. You lift one leg, shake it, no feeling. You slap the sole of your boot against the ground. Still nothing. You try wiggling your toes. There is something there. Dull, sluggish, wrong. You already know what it is. Everyone does. You just do not want to say it out loud, because that makes it real. So you go with the usual line, just cold. As if cold is somehow better. As if cold is temporary, like this forest is ever going to warm up. You lean back and try to adjust your socks. Not an easy task when you are crammed behind a broken log, with half your weight on a slope and the rest sinking into wet leaves. You unlace your boot halfway. It sticks. The laces are wet and stiff and knotted in places they should not be. You pull harder. The mud does not want to let go. When you finally get it loose, steam rises from the inside. That would be funny if it did not also mean your sock is soaked through again. You peel it back. Your foot is pale, not white, pale blue. The skin has that waxy look like an old candle that got left in a drawer too long. You press your thumb into the side of your toe. No bounce, no color comes back. You shake your head and pull the sock back up before you have to look at it any longer. You do not say anything. Your buddy sees it, does not ask, just nods once. He has seen it too. Everyone has. A guy in your unit got hauled off last week because his toes turned black just like that. He walked into the woods and came back with 10 dead digits. They carried him out in a stretcher, and his boots stayed behind. Nobody wanted to touch them. You release your boot as best you can. The mud is inside now. It squishes every time you shift your heel. You gave up on dry socks 2 days ago. The spares you have got in your pack are also wet. Somehow you wrapped them in oilskin, stuffed them into a tin, and tied it shut. It did not matter. The moisture got in. It always does. Someone mutters about foot powder, as if anyone still has some. Yours ran out during the second week. You poured it all into your boots one night, and it worked for about 10 hours. Then the rain came again. You could have poured it directly into a puddle and gotten the same result. One of the medics gave a talk once back during training. Keep your feet dry. Change socks twice a day. Elevate when possible. You remember nodding along, writing it down. Now, you are lucky if you get 10 minutes to sit, let alone take your boots off without getting frostbite before they go back on. The cold is always faster than you think. You try rubbing your toes through the lever. Not that it helps. It just gives your hand something to do. You flex your foot and try to pretend you can still feel all of it. You lie to yourself just a little. That is the only thing that still works properly. A voice down the line says, it is time to move again. You stand up or try to. Your left foot does not lift right. It drags just a little. You limp for 2 steps until you can feint a normal stride. Close enough. The march is slow. Visibility is still bad. The ground is worse. Slush, mud, ice in some spots. It forms in thin layers that break under your boot and send your ankle sideways. You catch yourself before you fall. You keep going. No one looks back. You do not blame them. You cross through a patch of brush where the snow is mixed with blood. Not fresh, not ancient either. Just their staining a white. You try not to step in it, but the ground does not give you choices. Every few minutes you stop and shift your weight. Roll your ankles. Wiggle your toes. Try to keep the blood moving. One guy is stomping his feet softly, like he is doing a nervous dance. Another guy just stops and leans on a tree, breathing through clenched teeth. You pass another set of boots, empty, still laced. Someone had to ditch them in a hurry. You do not want to know why. You do not ask. The cold is in your bones now. Not just your feet, your legs too. From the knees down, it feels like you are walking on sticks. No sensation, just movement. You keep testing yourself, pinching, tapping, flexing, anything. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you just get a dull ache. That is your warning. That is the alarm going off in your nerves, telling you things are going bad slowly. You hear another man ask for a medic. Not loudly, just enough to be heard. He is limping. Bad. He sits on a rock, pulls off his boot, does not even flinch. That is the sign. If it does not hurt anymore, you are too far gone. The medic takes one look and wraps it without a word. Does not say he is fine. Does not say you will make it. Just moves on. You sit again. Shift your legs. Look down. Still there, still moving. That is all you got to work with. Somebody says, this is the easy part. That once we get past the forest, it gets better. Roads, vehicles, real shoes, you do not even answer. Your boots squatch every time you take a step, and you are pretty sure the toes on your left foot have not moved since yesterday. You pass a ditch where someone left a footlocker half buried in slush. It is open. A pair of socks frozen into a solid lump sits inside. You stare at them for a second like they are treasure. You do not touch them. Too late anyway. The line stops again. More waiting. Always more waiting. You lean against a tree and take the weight off your feet. Your legs shake. You ignore it. You remember your dad complaining about sore feet once. Long day at the shop. You would laugh if your face were not too frozen for that kind of thing. You reach down, unlace your boot again, just to check. The foot still pale, still there, still cold. You rub it a little, curse under your breath, and lace it back up. It will get worse before it gets better. That is assuming it gets better at all. Nobody knows where you are. That includes you, the guy in front of you, and probably the man with the map 3 clicks back who swore this was the right hill. It is not, or maybe it is, but it looks exactly like the last 3, covered in the same trees, the same churned up dirt, the same promising ridge that leads to more fog and more questions. You are told to hold position again, so you drop your pack behind a fallen log and sit on it, hoping it is not covering a landmine. At this point, it is a 50-50th. You pull out your canteen and sip what tastes like rust. It is warm, which you would think would be nice, but is not. Everything tastes like metal and regret. Someone mutters that higher command wants a report. You all laugh, short, dry, and automatic. There is a radio somewhere. You know, because you saw a guy carrying it this morning. A big square box with a twisted antenna and a frayed strap. He disappeared into the trees about 2 hours ago to find a better signal. He has not come back. One of the corporals fiddles with a smaller set. It crackles, then pops, then dies. He smacks it once and shrugs. Dead battery, he says. Like, that is an acceptable explanation. During an active military operation, orders do not come through on time. When they do, they arrive via messengers who look like they have been lost for days. Guys with mud up to their elbows, missing helmets, wearing someone else's gloves. They show up breathless, hand you a note, and leave before you can ask a single question. The paper is wet. You try to read it. The ink smudged. Could say advance. Could say hold fire. Could say good luck. You go with your best guess and hope no one shoots you for it. Maps are no help. You have seen 3 or different. One says you are near Hill 400. One says you are on it. The last says Hill 400 does not exist. And this is actually Hill 232, which you were supposed to be at yesterday. The officer holding the map points at the trees, like that clarifies anything. It does not. Compass broken. Your squad's compass took a hit when someone fell into a ditch and landed on it. Now it spins in circles like it is mocking you. One guy swears he knows which way is west. He says he can feel it in his bones. You follow him for half a mile, only to end up right back where you started. Turns out his bones are just as confused as the rest of him. The chain of command gets blurrier the deeper you go into the forest. You used to know who was in charge. Now it changes hourly. Sometimes it's the guy with the radio. Sometimes it's whoever has the cleanest uniform. Today, it is a sergeant with one eye swollen shut and a piece of tree stuck in his collar. He gives orders like he's reading them from a dream. Then there's the problem of the other units. You're supposed to be coordinating with the squad to your right. They were last seen 2 days ago, crossing a creek that might not even exist anymore. No contact since. You don't know if they're alive, pinned down, or already rotated out. You hope they rotated out. You doubt it. Patrols sent to check the perimeter get lost. Not for hours, sometimes for days. One came back yesterday and said they found a bunker, reported it, and then got shelled by their own side. Wrong coordinates. The lieutenant blamed the map. The map didn't answer. Signal flares don't get through the canopy. You shoot one, and it hits a branch, explodes too low, and nearly deafens everyone. The smoke drifts sideways, useless in the wind. Even if it made it out, no one's looking up. Everyone's looking down, at their boots, the mud, the trees, anything that might hide a tripwire or something worse. You try yelling. Doesn't help. The forest eats sound. You shout 10 feet ahead, and it comes out like a whisper. You hear echoes that shouldn't exist, and can't hear the guy behind you asking for extra rations. The only communication that works reliably is hand signals. Simple ones. Stop, move, get down, shut up. That's about all you need. Everything else is implied. You've learned to read glances, head tilts, the way someone breathes right before something bad happens. When artillery comes in, nobody calls it. You all just know. There's a pause, a flicker of something in the air, then the shriek. And you're already on the ground before you process it. That's communication now. Reflex and silence. You hear battalion command is trying to get a forward observer up on the ridge. So far, they've sent 3. None have checked in. The ridge is covered in fog, so thick you could lose a truck in it. And they have. You heard about a jeep convoy driving into the forest and vanishing. 2 vehicles, 6 guys, a case of ammo. Gone. No gunfire. No smoke. No tracks. Just gone. You figure they restuck in the same loop you re-in, walking in circles through pine trees that all look the same. When reports do make it back to command, they're late and wrong. You know, because you've read some of them. They say positions are secured that you've never seen. They say the enemy is falling back when you've just taken fire from the same machine gun nest for the 3rd day in a row. One even claimed your company was at full strength. You look around after reading it. You could count everyone on 2 hands. You stop asking questions. You start assuming nothing is accurate. You stop caring whether you're taking Hill 400 or just circling it forever. All that matters is staying close, not getting separated, not wandering into a minefield or the line of fire from your own side. One guy suggests tying ropes between you like mountain climbers. Nobody does it, but nobody laughs either. It doesn't sound that crazy anymore. At one point, a runner shows up with new instructions. He's been walking for 12 hours trying to find your squad. When he finally gets there, the lieutenant reads the paper, frowns, and shoves it in his pocket. You ask what it says. He shrugs. Doesn't apply anymore. You keep moving anyway. The forest doesn't care what the paper says. Neither does the cold, the wind, or the German machine gun you all pretending. Iant is still on the hill above you. The only message that ever really gets through in the hurricane is, keep walking, stay low, don't trust anything written. And if someone starts talking about the plan again, just nod and go back to watching the trees. Because you can't report your position when you don't know what it is. And you can't follow orders that were already outdated when they left the radio tower. You hear the first shell before you see anything. Always the same sound, rising, screaming, tearing through the air like it's late for something. You don't move at first. You freeze. Then you hit the ground because that sound never means anything good. And you've already learned that your body reacts faster than your brain ever will. The explosion's not close, but it's not far either. Far enough that you're still breathing. Close enough to feel it in your ribs. The dirt shakes. A tree somewhere behind you snaps and collapses. You don't look back. You just press your face into the mud and wait for the second one. It comes fast. A little to the left this time. You taste dirt and cordite. You taste fear too. You've gotten used to that part. Artillery is not precise out here. It doesn't need to be. It's not about accuracy. It's about pressure. You don't shell a forest to destroy something specific. You shell it to make everything inside stop moving, start doubting, dig deeper. They fall in threes sometimes, then fours, sometimes 5 in a row with no pattern, then nothing. You crawl into a different position and just about start to breathe, a before the next. One lands 50 feet to your right and reminds you that breathing's optional. The Germans are good at this part. They've been sitting on the high ground for weeks, months. Their guns are dialed in fixed positions, pre-sighted coordinates. They don't need spotters. They don't need confirmation. They know where you're going because they've watched everyone go there already. Some of them are firing 88s. You can tell that sounds different. Sharper, cleaner, more professional in the worst way. The kind of shell that doesn't just kill, it vaporizes. Leaves a crater where someone used to be. The ground's already chewed to pieces. You're not digging new holes anymore. You're occupying old ones. Shrapnel's embedded in half the trees around you. Some of them are splintered like someone tried to open them with dynamite. You adjust your helmet. The strap's tight. You loosen it, then tighten it again. You've developed rituals now, little superstitions that help you pretend you have any control. You check your rifle even though you won't be shooting at the sky. A guy near you pulls his scarf over his face and mutters about incoming, like the scarf's going to do anything. Then there's the other problem, the one under your feet. Landmines, they're everywhere. Not in lines, not in marked fields, just scattered like seeds by a farmer with a grudge. Some are pressure plates, some are tripwires. Some don't need a raisin. You take a step and that's it. No sound, no warning. Just pressure, then air, then nothing. They blend into the ground. Mud covers them. Leaves hide them. Snow makes it worse. You stop trusting your eyes. You start watching the feet of the guy in front of you. You step where he steps. You don't step where he doesn't. You saw what happened to the last guy who forgot. It was quiet, just a click. Then his legs weren't there anymore. You didn't see him hit the ground. He was already on it, screaming. Not words, just sound. You helped carry what was left. You haven't forgotten the weight. Some of the mines are American. That's the punchline. They were laid weeks ago when this forest was part of the front line. Then the line moved, and now they re in no man's land, which means they re in your path. Congratulations. You're walking through your own country's explosive leftovers. There's a guy with a detector in the squad. He doesn't use it much. Batteries are low, and it only works on dry soil. Nothing here is dry. He taps the ground with a stick instead. 1 foot at a time. Slow. Careful. Every few minutes, he marks the cleared path with a scrap of cloth or a snapped branch. You pray he doesn't get tired. Someone else finds a sign. Wooden. German. It's nailed to a tree and says, Min. You all stop, stare at it. Then someone shrugs and walks around it in the widest arc the terrain will allow. Like maybe the Germans put it there as a favor. Or maybe as a joke. You cross an old road. Just a trail, really, half buried in snow. There's a burned-out tank on the side. American tracks blown off. The turret twisted sideways. A helmet lies a few feet away. You don't pick it up. You just keep moving. The ground slopes downward, and your boots lose grip. You slide a few inches before catching yourself. That moment when your weight shifts, and you don't to know what is under you, that's when the panic hits. Not loud panic, the quiet kind. Internal. Cold. You plant your foot. Nothing happens. You plant the other. Still good. You exhale and feel ashamed that you'd held your breath. The squad ahead stops. The point man raises a hand. You crouch and scan the trees. Then you see it, a wire, barely visible, running between two stumps. Maybe ankle height, maybe lower. Booby trap. They mark it carefully. You step around. Someone mutters. He's probably not the only one. No one argues. You stop again. Wait for instructions. The radio's still not working. Someone argues about which way is north. The map's smeared. The compass doesn't help. You're guessing again. You've been guessing for days. A shell lands nearby, and a tree falls the wrong way, toward your position. You dive. It misses by a few feet. The ground shakes. Everyone repositions without a word, like it's routine now. Like it's normal to dodge falling trees with live fuses. Another mine goes off behind you. Not in your squad, another unit. You hear it, then the yelling, then nothing. You keep walking. Your ears ring constantly now. A steady tone that never leaves. You can still hear commands. Sort of. You just hope you're not missing the ones that matter. Everywhere you step, the earth tries to betray you. If the trees don't fall on you, the ground might explode. If the ground doesn't explode, the air might. And if none of those things kill you, well, there is always the chance you'll all get shelled again while trying to pee behind a stump. You step. Nothing. Step again. Still here. That's how you measure progress now. Not in miles, not objectives, just in how many more steps you take before something removes you from the count. You were supposed to get resupplied 2 days ago. Maybe 3. It's hard to tell anymore. The only clock you have is the sky, and even that doesn't work out here. The sun shows up for maybe 5 minutes a day if you're lucky, just long enough to give you false hope before disappearing behind another wall of fog and tree limbs. The rumor was a convoy was headed your way, with food, ammunition, fuel, dry socks. Nobody saw it. Nobody heard it. The last anyone knew, it was stuck behind a blown-out bridge 6 miles back. Or it took a wrong turn. Or it got shelled into non-existence. Any one of those is equally likely. All of them together feels about right. You're out of chocolate, clean water, anything that could be called useful. The last rations were split yesterday. A single can of corned beef passed around like some sacred relic. Everyone got a spoonful. The guy who finished it licked the inside of the can, so clean you could see your reflection. You didn't comment. You dig through your pack again, just in case. Maybe something's hiding at the bottom. You find lint, a bent cigarette, a crushed cracker, and a broken pencil. You consider eating the cracker. It smells like canvas. You eat it anyway. It tastes like regret. Your canteen is half full, but you ration it like liquid gold. You had a chance to refill from a stream earlier, but nobody touched it. Too close to the latrine area. Too close to whatever might be dead upstream. You'd rather stay thirsty than spend the next 48 hours curled in a ditch with your stomach trying to eat itself from the inside. Someone next to you gnaws on a piece of jerky he swiped from a dead guy 3 days ago. Nobody judges. Survival doesn't care. where it came from. One guy is boiling snow in a dented helmet. It will take half an hour to melt into half a cup of water, and it will taste like smoke and rust. But it's better than nothing. Barely. Ammo is not much better. You checked your pouches. 2 clips, one partially loaded. You haven't fired in 2 days. Doesn't mean you won't need to. Just means you're hoping you won't. There's no backup supply. No crates coming. You keep hearing more is on the way. That phrase doesn't mean anything out here. Out here, everything's on the way and never arriving. Grenades, you have one. You used to have 2. You gave the other to a guy on the edge of the line who was convinced he heard movement last night. Turned out it was a squirrel. He didn't throw it, but now he sleeps with the pin in his hand just in case. No one tells him to stop. You haven't seen a mortar round in a week. You got a guy carrying the tube around like it's a club. He jokes about swinging it at someone. You're not sure he's kidding. His loader's been using empty shell cases to dig fire pits. Medical supplies are gone. 1 roll of gauze between the whole squad. A half bottle of iodine that froze solid during the last cold snap. No morphine, no bandages, no scissors. The medic's been tearing strips off his own shirt for dressings. His sleeves are gone. You don't ask what happened to his gloves. You twist your ankle climbing over a root. Doesn't break, just hurts. You consider wrapping it, then realize you've got nothing to wrap it with. So you limp for a bit and tell yourself it's fine. If it's not bleeding, it doesn't count. A guy slices his palm trying to open a tin. Just a small cut. By the next day, his fingers are swollen and red. By the next morning, he can't move them. No antibiotics. They send him back toward the aid station. You know he won't make it that far. Your boots are falling apart. The soles are soft. The leather's separating near the toes. You use string to hold the seam closed. Someone else used wire. One guy's boots are so bad he stuffed them with torn pages from a field manual. He says it helps. You believe him because you want to. Dry socks, you dream about them. You once saw a guy trade a pack of smokes for a dry pair. Another guy traded his extra gloves for 2 boiled potatoes. You start doing the math. Figure out what you'd give for something warm and edible. Turns out the list is long. You find a spoon lying on the ground near a tree stump. No idea whose it was. Doesn't matter. You wipe it on your sleeve and put it in your coat. You don't even care about the dirt. That's the best thing you found all week. You hear another promise on the wind. A supply drop is coming. Some lieutenant says trucks are being rerouted, or mules, or maybe just guys with backpacks full of tins and hope. It's all the same. A string of guesses pretending to be facts. You've stopped asking when the answers always start with soon and end with nothing. The quartermaster, if he's still alive, probably has a ledger somewhere that says you were issued 3 days of rations, 5 magazines, and a medical kit. That would be hilarious if you had the energy to laugh. Instead, you sit in the mud and chew your last stick of gum until it loses its flavor, then keep chewing anyway. The guy next to you is melting snow in his mess tin with a lighter that barely works. He's shaking. Could be cold. Could be nerves. Could be both. He says if he makes it back, he's going to open a grocery store and never say, "We're out," ever again. You tell him you'll come by. Ask for a can of peaches. He nods. He doesn't smile. Just nods. You don't to bring up the fact that the next meal might be whatever you find frozen under a log. You don't say what everyone's thinking, that supplies are just a word now. One more promise floating out there with the rest of them. Not lies, just fiction no one has the heart to correct. You shoulder your pack again, lighter than it used to be. Not because you're stronger, just emptier. You stand up, boots creak, stomach growls, rifle shifts. Still no food, still no ammo, still no socks. But at least the spoon fits in your pocket. You notice it one morning. Or maybe it's afternoon. Time isn't real anymore. So you go by how heavy your arms feel and how many times you've forgotten what you were doing mid-step. At some point, you realize your thoughts aren't lined up the way they used to be. They drift, bounce around. Sometimes you think about your rifle and end up thinking about pancakes. Sometimes you forget the rifle part completely. You haven't slept, not properly. You get a few minutes at a time, curled up in a hole you didn't dig deep enough, helmet pressed against your chest, chin tucked down like that'll stop your dreams from leaking out. When you do sleep, it's the kind that doesn't rest you. Flickers of noise, fire, faces you don't recognize. You wake unsure where you are, or whether you ever left. You talk to yourself more now, quietly, like you're trying not to let the forest hear. Just little things, reminders, observations, names your own. Sometimes one guy in your unit started narrating everything he does, pulling a ration, checking boots, climbing a hill. You'd laugh, but you know why he's doing it. It keeps the silence from taking over. You haven't written home. Not since the first week. You tried once, got 3 sentences in, and couldn't think of a fourth that wasn't a lie. What are you going to say? Things are fine? They're not. Hope to see you soon? You don't. Not because you don't want to, but because hope is something you left behind with the last clean pair of socks and the idea that food might arrive when promised. You see movement in the wood sometimes, shapes that aren't there when you look again. You tell yourself it's fog or shadows or a tree leaning the wrong way, but you clutch your rifle anyway, because the part of your brain that used to filter imagination stopped showing up to work. There's a guy who swears he saw a woman in the trees. Red dress, no face, just standing. He says she looked at him and then disappeared. Nobody calls him crazy. Nobody laughs. Half of you think maybe he did see something. The other half wish he had, just for a break in the routine. You stare at the ground a lot, at your boots, your hands. Sometimes you forget what you're holding. One guy spent 10 minutes trying to light a rock with a match before anyone noticed. Nobody said anything. You just let him finish. You start counting things. Trees, footsteps, links, anything. Just to have a number in your head that is into how many days you've gone without hearing from command. You lose track after a while. Start over, doesn't matter. Jokes still happen. Sort of. They're not funny. Not really. Just noise. Something to say to remind each other you still have mouths. The guy with the bad boots says he's going to write a book after this. Call it How Not to Win a War. Someone else suggests How to Die Wet. You all nod like those are bestsellers. You forget birthdays. You forget holidays. Someone mentions it might be Thanksgiving. You look around at the trees and mud and broken helmets and try to picture turkey. You can't, not even the smell. You close your eyes and try harder. Nothing comes. Just smoke and that burning chemical tongue that sticks to your teeth. You keep moving because that's the only thing that makes sense. When you stop, your thoughts catch up, and they're worse than the cold. You've stopped caring about noise discipline. A guy dropped his mess kit yesterday and just stared at it. Didn't even pick it up. Left it there. Nobody yelled. Nobody wanted to be the one to break the silence that fell afterward. Some men have started laughing at odd moments. Not jokes, just nothing. They sit down, look around, and start chuckling like they just heard the punchline of something only they understand. The rest of you glance over weight and go back to pretending it's normal. You flinch at nothing. Now sounds that don't exist. You feel the whine of a shell that never came. You duck before you realize there's nothing above you. You stop trying to explain it. That takes energy. Paranoia doesn't feel like paranoia here. It feels like planning. You stop trusting Bush. You stop trusting your own shadow. You once leveled your rifle at a tree that looked wrong. It wasn't a person, just a branch shaped like a coat. You lowered your rifle and didn't tell anyone. You've forgotten some names. Not all, just a few. The guy who sleeps next to you. You know his face, but not where he's from anymore. You remember he has a sister, or maybe a dog. You stop trying to sort it out. Someone whispers prayers now, constantly, not loud, just under his breath, like a motor. He's not religious, or at least he wasn't. But now the repetition helps. Keep something ticking upstairs. You tried drawing once. Just lines in the dirt with a stick. Nothing in particular, just patterns. It felt good until someone stepped on it. You didn't say anything. Just stared at the footprint until the wind covered it up. You think about stupid things now. What your house smelled like. What your pillow felt like. The way socks feel when they're still warm from the laundry. You try to hold on to those thoughts, but they don't stay long. They slip away, replaced by roots and snow and distant artillery. You know things aren't right, but you don't know how to fix them. There's no fixing them. That's just making it through one more hour, then another. You talk less, think more, then stop thinking too. The guy next to you asks what day it is. You say it doesn't matter. He nods. Neither of you is wrong. The first officer you came in with is gone. You don't know when it happened. Maybe during the shelling 2 weeks back. Or maybe when he walked off to get bearings and never returned. Nobody found a body, just a pair of boots outside a blown-out foxhole and a helmet full of dirt. Someone said they saw him after that, up near the ridge. Someone else said he got pulled back to HQ. Then again, someone else swore he was dead. At this point, all three options feel equally plausible. So now you're following a new officer. Kind of. He's young. Shiny bars on his collar. Looks like he hasn't slept in a week, which is about standard. His voice is always half gone, and his hands shake when he pulls out his map. The first thing he did when he took over was lose the radio. He set it down to take a leak and forgot where. By the time anyone noticed, the fog had swallowed it whole. It was 2 days before you had a working set again. Not that it made much difference. Command silence speaks louder than any static ever could. This new lieutenant tries to give orders, but mostly he just repeats whatever vague objectives come down from people further up the food chain. Secure the ridge. Hold position. Advance cautiously. None of those phrases mean anything when you knee-deep in freezing sludge with a squad that's down to 9 men and a roll of wire for marking mines. He pulls out his compass, squints at it, turns in a circle, and points to a hill that looks exactly like the last 5 hills you climbed. That way, he says. Nobody moves. One of the guys spits into the snow, then starts walking opposite the direction he pointed. The rest follow. The lieutenant doesn't argue. When he tries to act like he's in charge, it doesn't stick. Last week, he tried to organize a patrol. A standard sweep down through the tree cover, a half-mile, report back. He drew a diagram in the dirt, using a stick. Halfway through the explanation, a shell landed nearby and blew the entire plan off the map, literally. Dirt, stick, everything gone. After that, he just said, "Figure it out." And nobody blamed him.